Welcome, everyone, to the Return Podcast. Today, I am thrilled to be speaking with Michael Jospe. The EarthBase Institute was founded by Michael Jospe. As a professional coach, educator, and wilderness guide, Michael is passionate about helping people learn about themselves while being out in nature. Michael has a BA in outdoor recreation leadership through Western State College in Colorado and an MA in transformational learning from Prescott College in Arizona, a certificate in Gestalt psychology through the Boulder Psychotherapy Institute, and a certificate in evidence-based coaching through Fielding Graduate Institute. Michael's also certified as a professional coach through the International Coach Federation and as a wilderness first responder through Wilderness Medicine Institute. Michael's approach to working with people has been greatly influenced by his studies under authors and educators Tom Brown Jr. and John Young and Gestalt therapist Dr. Roger Strachan. Michael, how you doing today?
Hey Darren, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm so happy that you have started a podcast because I'm just imagining all of the amazing people that I know you're connected with and the rich conversation that is a part of this. So I can only imagine the service that this is bringing to the world. So thanks for having me
Thanks, man.
here. Yeah,
Yeah, you bet. You bet. I'm excited, and thank you for saying that.
yeah,
It's been a journey doing the interview and podcast thing. Um,
yeah.
so for the listeners, gosh, it was over 15 years ago that we met.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I met you through an extended studies program at Western State
I
when you were
remember
doing
that.
a weekend wilderness therapy course.
Yeah,
And
Introduction to Wilderness Therapy. I think that's what I called it.
yeah, intro to wilderness therapy. And
Yeah,
and pretty quickly it was like got on the same page that we both had studied with Tom.
yeah,
And that's where our relationship began and has,
yeah, yeah.
from helping in vision quests and being part of EarthBase Institute
Hmm.
as a student and a little bit helping in the beginning, and
Yeah,
friends.
that's
And
right.
yeah, so it's just great, man. It's great to be with you on this
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah, yeah. We speak a similar language for sure. I think our definition of what wilderness therapy is different than what we see out there in the world as a wilderness therapy type program, right? It's
Hmm.
more of like a deep connection to nature and the therapeutic element of that and how to help people access that space.
Yeah, very much a reciprocal conversation and
Yeah.
communication with the land. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Conversation. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember that first weekend, there, if it wasn't explicit, although it was at times, it was implicit throughout the all of the weekend that ritual was a part of what you teach and how you teach and informs the
Yeah.
relationship with nature. Yeah.
It's the doorway.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's the doorway into that connection, right? Because as you know, right, that the ritual, the ceremony, the practices like that set your mind in a particular way. It tunes you to hear and see in a particular way. So
Mm.
it's one of the things that's the difference between just kind of walking out onto the land, right, which has its power and all of that, and going out onto the land in a ceremonial way, going out onto the land with the intention of connection and listening um, and finding, discovering, searching, and that's a whole different relationship right there.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think what stands out to me about what you just shared is the deep listening,
yeah,
like the deep receptivity.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which we all have access to. It's not something that you know, I mean, yeah, people struggle with listening, right? We always hear like, yeah, I wish that person listened to me, or my dad never listened, or something like that, right? But we all have the capacity. It's part of how it's part of our human nature to be
Yeah.
listeners. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like really I mean, we're just diving in deep real quick. Like part of that deep listening is allowing ourselves to be touched by nature.
Yeah,
And that in itself is perhaps an obstacle to allow ourselves to be touched.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just, you know, sometimes when I'm bringing people into that space, you're making me think a little bit about just the power of our physical senses in that
Mm,
listening.
hmm
And this idea of touch in our physical senses that doesn't just have to do with like touching things, right? Yeah, that's powerful, like touching trees and plants and rocks and all that. But how is nature touching you? Like, how is your
mm,
environment touching you right now in this moment? Like, even, as you're listening to this, as you're in this space, like, how is your environment touching you right now? Like,
hmm
can you feel it coming towards you? Can you feel the connection that's being made around you as opposed to it always having to be out going towards, but what's coming in? What's coming
hmm
in? Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's consequences to, to being touched. Yeah.
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 Say more.
Well, we can receive information that and awareness that changes how we move, right? And
Absolutely.
how we experience ourselves.
That's right. That's right. That's like, I think that's the power of the whole thing right there
Yeah,
is if you're willing to be in that space of the unknown, you know?
exactly.
Yeah. And then see where it takes you. Um,
Yeah.
it makes me think of like Tom Brown and Stalking Wolf and how Tom always talked about how Stalking Wolf would pause all the time. They'd be walking and he would pause and listen, right? Let his concentric rings settle down and tune into the environment so he could figure out how to move forward next. I love that idea,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I had this question kind of in my mind if we got there towards the end, but it's so alive right now.
Okay.
When I hear that pausing
Yeah.
and then how to move, how to respond, I
Yeah.
actually, I actually think about leadership.
Mm. It's a totally different type of leadership, you know?
Absolutely a different
Yeah,
type
I
of
think
leadership.
the way that like we play with that a little bit at EBI is like nature connected leadership,
Mm,
right? Like how do you respond in a way that's aligned with what's happening a lot that's alive in the moment, and you're a part of that moment too, right? So what's happening for you? What's happening around you? And how do you move into that?
hmm
Right? As opposed to trying to, um, move something through time and space, move a group of people, move whatever. But, sharing a collective goal as a group, like here's how we're moving towards this and responding in the moment as we go to it,
hmm
listening, feeling into it. It just reminds me a lot of just the scout training from Tom and how he approaches that whole world of, the scout team is a
hmm
real powerful metaphor for leadership.
hmm hmm Yeah, it carries it's
Yeah, yeah,
moving with life.
yeah.
And gosh, now that I think about it, I don't think the listeners, if they don't know me personally, know that I have a deep affinity for the Grateful Dead. So I've been exposed.
You and I
Plat
have been to one of those,
we
dead companies,
fur
right?
uh and or further.
Oh, further, that's what it was. Yeah, further. Yeah.
Um, but that's one of the ways I actually describe Garcia's guitar playing
Oh, really?
was was that he was totally responsive uh and carried the whole band.
Mm,
He led actually from a deep listening.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's different
Yeah.
than the lead guitarist that just shreds over everybody.
Right.
Garcia carried everything, including the audience, with him.
Mm.
So now that I brought the Grateful Dead to the
Hey, we could cover it all, man.
field, yeah, yeah. So I really like, how you talk about leadership. Yeah. Um, so I'd love to pull back a little bit and hear about EBI, Earth-Based Institute, but also
Yeah.
what led you there? Like start a
Mm.
little bit from the beginning and then how that has informed what you do with
Yeah. Okay. Um, well, I remember you in a recent episode you had Carl on and he was a part of my journey actually. He was a part of supporting that process. Um, anyways, so yeah, I wasn't one of those kids that like, growing up, grew up like in the woods, running barefoot and, living in shelters and stuff. I wish. I'm always so jealous when I hear about people that grew up that way. I grew up in Massachusetts and, when I wanted out of there as soon as I figured out where I was, where I figured out where I was, I wanted to be like in the mountains of Colorado where where I'm not in the mountains now, but where my heart was calling me at that time. And I don't think it was until much later where I really realized, wow, that, Massachusetts is beautiful, beautiful forests and all that. I just couldn't, connect with it there. But um, you know, just not nature became kind of a place where I started to understand myself a bit more, through my teenage years, college, start kind of towards my college years, really struggling socially, academically,
Mm,
um, you know, dealt with pretty severe bullying when I was a kid. And I don't know if any of the folks who listen have ever dealt with bullying, but that really damages your self-concept. So it really nature in many ways became a place of clear reflection. And I
mm,
didn't know that. I didn't know that until much later, but it was like a real safe space for me. I felt myself there. I felt like I felt like there was a place where I felt like who I could be or who I was. Not who I could be, but I guess I felt more of who I am there
mhm,
and felt comfortable being myself in that world of the trees and the forest rather than in the world of the people, right? Took a long time to be able to still today struggling with, feeling comfortable in the world of the people. Um, but the so through all of that really is when I discovered Tom Brown. And someone gave me one of his books, the book called The Tracker. And at like 17 years old, I read that book and it totally changed everything for me. Like when I read that, um I stepped outside, I think really for the first time. I stepped outside and I was like, I think I understand what's going on around me a little bit more. Like I can hear these birds. I'm seeing, like I could see things, and there's books like that, right? That like the people write that know how to write these books in a way that like impact you, like change something in your brain, right? Makes you think differently and I was ready for that at that time.
mm,
So I just, I remember one summer just reading those, all of the books, everything that Tom wrote. I went down to the bookstore and just bought them all and read them. And then realized, wow, this guy's got a school, he's got a school. And I was at a time there trying to figure out if I was, going to go back to college and all that. And That's where I wanted to go to college. But my dad was not supporting that path. He wanted a traditional path. So I ended up taking that and just going into the woods myself and just studying, practicing, trying, learning. And when I was in there in those woods practicing, learning, I remember distinctly practicing making a bow drill. I had the book out on a like a stump and I was following the instructions and I was going through the whole thing. And in the back of my mind, I was teaching. I was teaching while I was doing it. I was teaching people to do it, but I wasn't teaching people how so much. I was teaching people how could impact their lives. There was like a
Mm,
metaphor, there was a symbol that I was tuning into with that. And I think that was the first moment where I was like, there's something here, like that, this is, I didn't realize it, but like, it was like, I want to teach people this. This is what I want to do.
mm,
Teach people this. And
mhm,
then I found, like you mentioned in my bio, I found Western State, Colorado University, and they had an outdoor education. I couldn't believe you get a degree in like outdoor recreation. That was like mind blowing to me that you could do that. Um, and so I went there and it was fantastic, right? Like we were learning like all sorts of things from, how to take groups rock climbing and rafting and backcountry skiing. I loved all that. But nobody was talking about like the impact that those experiences were having on people's lives, right? It's like, you
mm,
know, like this climb that we're doing there's a lot of stuff that's happening for me on this rock climb here. There's a lot of stuff that's happening for this person as we're going down the river. And there's no education how to teach that. Little bits here and there, but nothing too much. And so that became something that was like a real passion for me. But I wanted to bring in the deep nature connection experiences that I was having with Tom, or in learning from Tom. I hadn't even gone to a class from Tom until probably halfway through college, and then I started taking classes from him, and I've been, took dozens and dozens of classes. But um, so yeah, so that kind of like woke something up in me of not just I want to teach people, but I want to help people like process. I want to help people transform their life through this. So they need to learn the skill and how it impacts them. So those were that became kind of the how things got shaped for me a little bit there, and that led me into more studies with Tom and with John Young. And John, my time with John, I, had I think a pretty unique experience where, um, I got to feel things and touch nature in a way that was really, um, it just really woke something up for me. Um,
mm,
you know, there were times like John would literally take my hand and put it in tracks, where Tom, you just didn't have that. But with John, John would literally take my hand and and show me how to touch that track, how to listen to certain things. And there were times where I was like, wow, there is something else. There's a whole nother world that's going on here that I'm not fully connected to or listening to. So I started really paying attention to that. And that was that really opened up the door into this deep listening piece and deep listening through a place of deep nature connection, really. And
mhm,
so these things started to really, trigger my academic mind and my entrepreneurial mind and all of that. Like, how do I do this as my career? Like, how does this become my career? Because I can't quite fit in to these other constructs that are out there. Like, this is who I am. This is what I need to be doing. And that led me to Prescott College, where basically you could create a master's degree um, in in an area of study that was of interest and create and shape you know a learning path for yourself. And that was totally what I needed. Um, and that was where this kind of coaching model, this nature connected coaching model formed, was there. Um, the idea for EarthBase Institute formed actually long before that and was really kind of inspired for my through my time with John. Um, and yeah, really at first I saw more of like a place, right? Like a place on the land with many different fields of study coming together that were connected through nature. Um, and I see that there's pieces of that original inspiration still here today. I mean, that's where the name came from. That was a long time ago. Um, but yeah, so now this idea of nature connection and nature connected coaching um, really started to come online when I finished up my graduate studies, and I got to, through that, kind of um, research the model that I was developing in my mind and
Mm.
run people through it and test it and check it um, and at the same time, I started working for Western State and offering courses like the one that you came to. And that was the place where I got to actually try out this curriculum.
Mm.
And and I think I called it like therapeutic applications of nature or
Yeah.
something like that. It was
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that at the time, but that was like the first cohort that went through the program. And they taught me so much. Um, and and when kind of the way that I designed that at that time was that, coming out of this field of outdoor education, most of the graduates at that time, the where you could actually like make the most money coming out of that career was, or out of that degree, was to go into the field of wilderness therapy, was to get hired as a field staff at a wilderness therapy program. Um, and but the thing is that for my training specifically, there was no real education around the therapeutic processing that's going on in that world. There was a whole lot of wilderness skills and group leadership skills and that kind of stuff, but no real processing of, what's going on for somebody. So that was the starting point of the curriculum, was how do you take these wilderness skills and support someone's personal transformation through them? So that was the very beginning of it all. Um, and then my own coaching practice really started to evolve. And I was focused mostly on working with people who were returning home from those wilderness therapy programs. So I was training staff going in, but I was also working with kids and families that were coming back from those programs, and trying to integrate back into life. And I think that that's really where the power of nature connected coaching is in this whole concept of integration and integration of
Yeah.
powerful transformational experiences, right? So, wilderness provides that. So let's learn how to take people out into the wilderness, and create the context for that powerful experience. But it's just a powerful experience if it doesn't get integrated into your life. The real work is about living. That vision is about bringing it into your life. So
Hmm.
that started to become more of the central focus of the nature connected coaching program, was how do you really integrate? And Um, so working with those clients and starting to develop myself as a coach and realizing the value of actually getting a professional credential as a coach and beginning to kind of understand the that world of presenting myself not just as this wilderness nature guy, but also as a professional coach that is competent in skills that can help you actually reach the goals that you have. So all of that started to come together, and eventually Nate the Nature Connected Coaching Program got accredited with the ICF, and now it's now we're full-blown training professional coaches. And I think just another evolution of it all, like where we are right now today with everything, is that when you went through the program, it was kind of like, here's your certification and good luck, best of luck to you. And I started to really realize that, like, you know, we give these people come through this program, these powerful tools, like really
Hmm.
powerful tools, but you know, they also need to know how to get the clients. They also need to know how to make a living doing it. So it's not just these amazing tools that they just have inside of them, but they don't know how to actually generate the clients. And so that's become a huge element now of Earth-Based Institute is how do you get clients? How do you actually build a coaching business? And that's now like a fundamental element to this whole training program where we're teaching you the same skills, the same training, but there's this piece of career development that's behind that, of understanding
Hmm.
like how do you, as a nature lover, as someone who's just heart and soul is like, I just want to help. I just want to help people. I want to show people the power of nature, you know? And I'd like to make a living being able to do that, you
Hmm.
know? I think it's important. I think it's really important. I think it's one of the things that I see as like almost a failure in this whole world of training people in these powerful skills is how do you get the people to apply it to, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me personally, and I don't think I'm unique in this, um, is that my love for nature, my desire to help people sometimes is in conflict with the entrepreneur in me.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I think it's quite common for people like me,
Absolutely.
even artists could be the same, put that like, wait, no, this
Yeah.
art is just moving through me. Like
Right.
that's my role is just to create it,
Totally.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think of that as like, you came into this world with a gift, right?
right.
Like the gift to be able to listen, the gift to want to be able to give that listening skill to someone to help them, that's something that's unique to you in the way that you do that. And how do you put a price on that, right? I mean, like that's just it's who you are. And like I think about like these like indigenous culture, right? Where you'd be the guy in the hut that people would come to say,
Yeah,
I've got this issue, this sickness, this illness, this stress, this whatever. And and here's a deer hide. Will you help me? Right? Yeah, and you because you know that if you help them, the whole community, the whole family, the whole tribe benefits, right? So it's your role, it's your the part that you do inside. I think that's inherent in all of us. It doesn't make
yeah,
sense. It's really hard to think about like, oh, okay, let's just give me money, right? Um, and so how do we blend that like deep aspect of who we are into this capitalistic society that we live in, where you still got to, pay your car insurance and all of that, right? Um,
yeah,
so I think there's ways to do that. Um, yeah, you do have to deal with the money side of things. You've got to face that. And that's a big
Mhm.
part of it is, facing the belief systems that we have around money. And it's just for me, I just remember being like, isn't it enough? Can't it just be enough that I like want to help people?
Right,
Isn't that enough? Like, do I really have to go
right.
out there and like tell people like how much that costs? And like now it's like brings up value, right? Like my value that I'm bringing to the world. And, coming for someone who, was bullied, your value is like man, that's been a huge hurdle in my life of like trying to express
Of course,
value behind what I'm doing.
of
And
course.
there's always going to be people on the other end that tell you it's too expensive, that it's not worth it, it's whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so, but I think that I think if we stay with that idea of the tribe, it's like talk to your tribe
Yeah.
because they'll see the
Village.
value, you
Yeah.
know, they'll see the value and they'll bring you the deer hide in the form of $5,000 or whatever that is. So if you speak to that tribe, you speak to those people and, but yeah, you got to put yourself out there.
Hmm.
That's the other hard part around it. You got to
Hmm.
put yourself out there because we don't live in a tribe in that way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's people that do, but yeah.
There's a few things I'm listening that I'm hearing and a few things I'm tracking. One is EBI. But underneath that, when I see you at the stump having, maybe Tom Brown's Field Guide to Wilderness Survival wide open,
Yeah.
and then all the way through,
Yeah.
is there was something happening for you that I would call vision.
Hmm.
There's like a vision that you had that occurred in your uh let's just call it your imagination for
Right.
now. Um, that has been congruent the whole time.
Yeah.
That has carried through in its reading Tom's books, practicing those skills, and I know this from personal experience studying with him, the impact of being in his presence and how he can inspire us to listen to our vision. Um, but I hear you listening to that constantly,
Yeah.
constantly listening. So I'm curious if you can
Mm.
one unpack that journey for you, but also like what is vision? What
Yeah.
is vision to you? What have you learned about vision? How is your deep listening? How is it applied inward
Mm.
to that place of
Yeah. That's a
yeah,
powerful question, Darren.
it's a big one.
It's a big one, but man, I can feel it in my heart as you ask it. Um, you know what I think when I think about my personal journey with that, it's it's like the only real thing at that time in my life when that was starting to wake up for me that I really could trust. It was the only like kind of voice knowing inside that I could really trust. And um and I could hear it when I was in the silence of nature, when I was in the all the distractions and all the threats in that I would experience in my day-to-day life, those would be dropped when I was in the the wilderness. And I could hear it there. I could hear that. And I think I just trusted it
Yeah.
personally,
There's
just
there's
almost
like
blindly at times,
yeah.
you
Like I
know?
wonder, I wonder something like what if there is a place inside of all of us, let's call it vision, that absolutely is unfuckable with, that is
Yeah.
un that is untainted by any circumstance of our history.
I believe that that's true. I
Yeah.
call that soul. And I call soul the voice of vision, really. And
Mm.
But it's that place inside of you. Um, Tom talks about this too. It's that I can't remember the exact words that he would use, but the way that I've, organized it in my life. So some of this could have come from him. Um, Really, it's a place of deep centered knowing, but even more so, it's like that place inside of you that will not lie to you, that you
Mm.
actually cannot lie to. You could try to, but it's like that wise old grandmother that just looks at you and knows exactly who you are and can see through all of your crap, It's like it's that deep wisdom there, that place that will not lie and you cannot lie to. Um, and holds this calling, like a calling. And and I think people get messed up between what, Tom would talk about this, his idea of dream versus vision.
Yeah.
My
Oh, yeah.
dream is this, my dream is this, right? But my dream is to have this land that, I can run these programs out of, right? And what I've started to find is that there's the calling and your mind, the calling is vague. It's like it comes from someplace so deep that it's not crystal clear like a dream can be. It's like it's like a mix of feelings and words and symbolism, and it's more somatic than anything else, I think. You really feel it.
Yeah.
And you can hear it and you can see it. And when in our brain, our logical mind, because vision is not logical, our logical mind needs to organize it. And it organizes it in a dream. It helps you put this idea together in a way that must be true because it like aligns with that feeling in that moment, right? You're like, that's it. The land with the little cabin on it where people are going to come and transform their life. That's what I need. That's my vision. That's it right there. But what that does is I think, is it sets the compass needle in a direction. It helps you clarify something and it kind of sets the needle in a direction. But the minute you take a step, and you know this from like walking through the forest, right? The minute you take a step, the whole landscape changes. But it's the direction that you stepped in that's really, really important. That's the step of vision. But you have to stop, like stalking wolf, right? You got to stop again and pause and listen because things shift. And if you're attached to that dream, then you're like on a hope and disappointment path right there. And I've been on
Yeah.
that path so many times, right? I mean, it's challenging to go on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so is the path of vision too. That's not by any means is that easy because in many ways it's like it's contradictory. I mean, I remember having friends say to me, I could never do what you do. I could never do what you did, like to just follow something. Like I always had to go and kind of do a path that's already made,
Right.
you know? And
Yeah. Of
um and it would, I mean, for me too, there's a lot of questioning behind that, right?
course. Of
Because it's
course.
not easy. Yeah.
I was talking to somebody recently about the Joseph Campbell quote, follow your bliss.
Hmm.
And I don't remember who it was, but I said, the important part of that quote is the following.
That's right. I was gonna say it's the following. Yeah.
It's the following. And, you know, God willing, that leads to the bliss. But the importance is
Right.
the following.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I
Yeah,
also
the
hear,
bliss sets the compass needle in a direction.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I hear you kind of touching on this place of the wander,
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
of
I think
of the
wander is
wander.
just, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, no, go for it. I'd love to hear.
I
Yeah,
was just going to
what
say
your
that
thoughts.
the wander is just such a perfect metaphor for vision and for following vision, right? Because,
Hmm.
and this is where it's like, you know, sometimes it's like vision, there's no, it's not, there isn't some, from my experience, there's not just, it's not a beeline to it. There's no like specific, you don't really know where the whole thing's going to end up, but you have to do a lot of collecting along the way. You've got to collect a lot.
Yeah.
And
And,
go ahead. Yeah.
sorry, with coyote teaching, part of the medicine of the coyote is adaptability.
Yeah.
And when I think about um, vision and vision in my life, you may recall there was a chapter that I was working in the corporate world
Yep.
and I was doing storytelling.
Yeah.
I was teaching salespeople in multinational corporations how to work with storytelling. One, so there was more coherence in their company, but also so that they could relate with their customers better. Like the amount of adaptation that it required for me to deliver my vision in that context was enormous. But the vision didn't change.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's, I'm struck by you saying like as soon as you take a step, our perspective changes.
Yeah. And I
And
just think
that's
of
the
that
spirit of the
experience that
wander.
you're sharing right there, that wander, right? That moment, that place you arrived as you followed. It's like, okay, teach me, right?
Right.
And you had to you had to kind of push your ideas through a particular lens, right? And I find that to be a real, I see that happening in like just general, like with nature connected coaching students and so forth, like taking the concept of nature connected coaching or taking the concept of professional coaching and having to kind of push their ideas through that structure and find what's out on, we'll find what's on the other side of that, right?
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
idea of like becoming a nature connected coach, becoming a corporate, storyteller is a journey through something, right? Like what's on the other side of that? Who do you become on the other side of that? What is now available to you? This is the whole idea of integration. Like what is available to you now because you did that. You didn't
Yeah.
limit yourself. Yeah, for that moment you had to like fit in to something. But I mean, if there is anything that'll sharpen the knife, it's about running it through something, very specific, very,
Hmm.
right? Like you
Wow, I
weren't,
like that.
yeah. So yeah, it's a powerful concept to think about.
I'm gonna like take a little bit of a turn here. You brought up our vision and our brain. And I know for the curriculum in EBI does a lot with the brain. Um, I'm curious, what is our, what do I say this? Like, what does the brain look like on nature?
Oh
You
man,
know?
there's books on that. Thank God there's books on that now. There's literally a book called Your Brain on Nature. Um,
Ah,
and there's a lot of different angles we can go here, but there's a tremendous amount of research on the impact of nature on your nervous system, um, in terms of nervous system regulation. Um, but also just in terms of just, neurochemicals and, like this idea of getting a dose of nature, you know,
Mm,
like the whole concept of forest bathing or forest therapy is really based on that whole idea. And I
right.
mean, there's places where there, forest therapy walks or forest bathing walks where they can literally be prescribed. And I can't remember. I feel like there's a state in the US right now that has like a prescription. There's a nature prescription somewhere. I can't remember where that is, but prescribe it. Go walk down this trail and sit at that tree for 20 minutes, and it's going to have this, and stare at it, think about this, feel into this, whatever. It's going to have this type of impact on your nervous system, which is what, you're needing. Essentially, like if you think about that, it's like the idea of a dose of nature, right, is like a chemical, putting energy into your system. So
Mhm.
it completes some sort of missing or out of line aspect of who you are. Not who you are, but what you're experiencing in that moment in your life,
Right,
right? Brings in
right.
some balance and harmony to that. But the way that in the nature connected coaching program, the way that I think about the brain and nature and so forth is that we talk about change and like
Mm,
changing your life, transforming your life, but change can't happen unless the brain changes. Okay, we can't just change our life based around a fleeting thought or an inspirational idea or even taking a medicine. It's not just going to change your life in that way. You have
mm,
to integrate that into your life. You've got to reprogram your brain around that into your life. So the brain has to change in order for there to be change. Yes, if you have a powerful moment, you go to a retreat, you have an experience in nature, and that blows your mind, right? You're like, wow, that just changed everything for me. That's for a
right,
moment. For a moment,
right.
right? So the hard work is in, and comes from that concept of like living the vision. You just had a visionary moment. If you had that transformational moment, you had an opening, an opportunity into what's possible, how to be in the world, right? And so now live it. That's the change. And the living it, there's that's the neuroscience. That's the place to understand the neuroscience is how do you actually make that change in your life requires an understanding, I think, of the science behind that, of what it actually looks like to change the patterns, the neural connections, the chemical releases, the epigenetics that are a part of how we interact with our environment, with the world around us day to day. If you want to change that reality, like Joe Dispenza says, right? You want to change your reality, you have to you have to start to make the change internally inside of yourself to begin to shift that. You have to change your presence in that moment to be able to start to shift the way that you're viewing your personal reality. All of that as like kind of, out there, a woo-woo that can sound, that all has to do with the brain being able to
Right.
see, perceive a certain way, perceive yourself in the world. You're viewing yourself in the world based around the way that your brain is responding, reacting in that moment. So what
Wired.
is right?
Yeah,
So what does that mean? It's not just all psychological.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few things coming up for me. One is um I'm thinking this is way back in the day. I mean, I don't know how long, 15 years ago, you and I, and you brought me into it working with a young man really intensively for a chunk of time. And spent time in the wilderness, spent time in Gunnison, spent time in Boulder. Um, and you use this metaphor with him of the Colorado River changing direction
Mm,
with his patterns and in his behavior and his addictions. It was going to require like a carving out
yes.
a
Yeah.
new riverbed.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I hear the brain in that.
Yeah.
And
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
yeah,
And that metaphor I picked up from Rob Meltzer. You know Rob.
okay,
And
yeah,
yeah, I remember Rob sharing that at one point. I can't remember where, but yeah, the idea of changing um the kind of the patterns in our brain, like the kind of, and if you look at there's like our default mode network in our brain, which has a lot to do with the remembering of who we are. Not so much on a spiritual soul level, but how we wake up every single morning and remember who we are,
mhm,
right? If you don't have intentionality behind that, you're going to go into your default mode, which is going to be based on your memories. So you're just going to keep recreating yourself in the way that you've always recreated yourself, you know? You have to
sure,
do that differently. And Rob would talk about that as being similar to like changing the course of the Colorado River, because there's so much energy moving through that old, well-worn pattern, well-worn
yeah,
channel. And
yeah,
so, it's a Herculean feat, right? To be able to move
yeah,
the channel. But it's also something that can happen at an instant in a choice. It's a choice, always a choice.
yeah. I mean, what's happening for me is a theme that's running through our conversation is about integration.
Yep.
Um, and I'm playing with this edge right now in my mind of like, we have those moments of deep awareness, those mind-blowing moments, those reckoning, like, oh my God, I see how I've done it for so
Yeah.
long and it doesn't work anymore. But I'm playing with this edge of that is also not enough.
Yeah.
There has to be, put it in the John Young world, the core routines that support that integration.
That's right.
Or as my friend Soryu says, nothing's going to change unless something changes.
Right. Yeah.
you
It's
know
so
and
it's
that's
so like
actually
obvious. We
like
all
the
know this,
yeah, but it's like
you
the
know?
physical part. Like
Yeah.
sometimes we got to carry the rocks to move the river. and
Right.
and it and that I think about core routines. I think about having a sit spot.
Yeah.
I think about having intentional time in nature.
Yep.
um Whatever it may be for people that actually really support the awareness and the choice making and the action.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And there is a element of that choice that, so having the tools, right? Like, and the knowing is one thing, which I think, you know, we all know, like if you ask anybody, right? Like you, you know what you need to do here to really make the change. Like we can give people all sorts of ideas, but for the most part, most people know what they need to do, to be able to make that change in their life. It's the doing it side, right? It's
yeah,
the making myself do it, right? So then we talk about the accountability, we talk about commitment, we talk about all of these kind of things. And I think this is where, you know, um, spirituality and rituals and so forth can really help on that end of being able to create a container of commitment around yourself. But in the bottom, at the bottom of all that, at the core of all of that, I just remember something Tom saying about our conditioning towards comfort. And I
Yeah.
think that that right there is part of human nature. I think it's woven right into our nervous system, right into our brain. And it makes so much sense when you start to understand what the brain does and how it is, there to create a state of equilibrium, to keep yourself in a, right? That's like part of one of its big functions. But, to change, you have to get out of the comfort. And no one wants to do that when it's, warm and comfortable in their bed at 4:30 or 6:30 in the morning. And it takes this, like, if you think about, like, what is the mindset that you put yourself into when you actually do, like, what drives it? That sustaining that, making that, training yourself in some way for that to be something that is pleasurable,
Yeah.
that you
And there's
realize
even,
there's a reward on the other end of that. And this is like,
right.
there's a great, just to say it, there's a great uh this research on dopamine and the power of really understanding how we have control over the dopamine reserves and building that inside of our brain, how we do that. One of the things is getting into somewhat of a challenging, high focused type of situation. And it takes time to build up. It's not there at first. But once you start to realize, look, 10 minutes of this and I'm going to start to feel different, right? That there's this like messaging inside there where you're like, okay, I'm starting to train myself that this is actually going to be a pleasurable experience for me. Right now, it's not, but it will become that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love this embracing of discomfort. And there's like a couple different angles because sometimes people are more comfortable with the path that they know is causing suffering because it's all that they know.
Mm, yeah. Addiction. Addiction
Addiction.
to that feeling, I should say. I know that well. I know that very, very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that is also like the doing and the
Right.
recognizing. It's like I recognize that doing is the way I have done has not created what I want. Now
Right.
I have to do something. And I love you bringing in commitment. It's very relevant
Yeah.
to me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Michael, it's been awesome to have this conversation with you. I feel like we could talk for easily for another couple
Yeah.
hours.
Did you get what you needed?
Uh, I hope the people got what they needed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, what I'm curious is how can people find you?
Yeah. Well, earthbaseinstitute.org. And what I'd also love to do too is I'll give you to post on your website or wherever you post this a coupon code for people to who listen to this if they want to download a free course with 5 nature connection exercises that they can
Awesome.
do to help drop into their connection to nature. So that's my gift to you and your community, Darren.
Boom. That's awesome. Talk about integration and talk about taking action. Um, that's amazing. Michael,
Yeah.
thank you so much. People
Yeah, you're
will dig
welcome.
it. I dig it, that's for sure. Um, yeah, I mean, as always, I'm left with a lot more questions. Um, and deep curiosity about integration and the containers we can find and or create for ourselves to really create the changes we desire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right on.
And anyone that's listening that's curious about this, that wants to be a guide, that is interested in coaching, but wants to bring a whole lot of nature and soul and ritual into it, please check out EarthBase Institute. I've gone through the program. My brother's gone through the program. maybe in a side course right now, back at it again. And so please
It's
check out Michael from the EarthBase Institute.
yeah, yeah. Thank you, Darren. It's really nice to see you and to talk to you always. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, look forward to talking to you soon.
All right.
See ya.